Okay, so I want you to open the story, and I want you to open it with Cami, and I want you to write all over it. When I read you the story, I'll be underlining things and talking about things. You can underline those if you want, or anything else you want. We're going to read this story in 3 parts. The first part is the Coming of Grendel, which is only 1, 2.5 pages. Then we're going to stop. We're going to ask a few questions, and then we're going to read the Coming of Beowulf, which is only 1, 2 pages. And then when we're done with that, we'll stop and we'll read some questions, and then we're going to read the Battle with Grendel, which is only 1, 2, 3 plus pages. All right, so it's actually a relatively short story. I'm going to switch to my version that already has underlines on it, and I'm going to read it, if I can figure out how to do this. Okay, so if you open up your copy, you can follow along, or if you just want to listen for now, that works too. I'm going to see whether or not my highlighter, I can make a highlighter. Yes, I can. And you can see the highlighter on the screen. Good. Let's blow this up really big. Okay. So this is a translation in modern English so we can understand it. So it doesn't rhyme the way it's supposed to. It doesn't have a rhythm the way it's supposed to. It doesn't have alliteration the way it's supposed to. But the translator tried to give it as much as he possibly could. All right. The Coming of Grendel. A powerful monster. Oops, where'd it go? Come back. Living down. Oh, come back. I can't point at it. It moves everything. This is too bad. I got to undo this. Something's wrong. Oh, because I blew it up. That's the problem. I can do it if I don't blow it up. Makes it kind of hard for you guys to read. Okay.
Mitzi, do you have to annotate this whole story today?
No, we're only doing the Coming of Grendel.
All right.
All right, I'm going to blow it up. I won't be able to follow it with my finger, unfortunately, because it keeps doing that weird thing that it's doing. Okay. A powerful monster living down in the darkness growled in pain, impatient as day after day the music rang loud in that hall. Okay, so apparently there's a monster down underneath the hall. The music is ringing up above, and it's hall like a beer hall or a party hall or whatever, and all the warriors are upstairs having a party, and the monster doesn't like it. Okay, so day after day the music rang loud in that hall, the harps rejoicing call, and the poets' clear songs sung of the ancient beginnings of us all, recalling the Almighty making the earth, shaping those beautiful plains marked off by oceans, and then proudly setting the sun and the moon to glow across it and light it. So apparently the music upstairs, they're singing songs, and they're singing songs about the Almighty. That's a Christian God, Almighty Christian God. This is in pagan times, and yet they have an Almighty in the story, probably because by the time the story was written down, it was being written down by monks and religious people, and so they stuck God in there, their Christian God, when before that they had multiple gods, pagan gods. Okay, so they set the moon to glow across the land and light it. The corners of the earth were made lovely with trees and leaves, made quick with life, with each of the nations who now move on its face. And then As the warriors sang of their pleasure, so Hrothgar's men lived happily in his hall till the monster stirred. Dun, dun, dun. So apparently, the king, Hrothgar, he's like a Viking king. The king has a bunch of warriors who get to hang out in his house and have parties. Because, of course, he wants the warriors nearby in case he wants to go out on a trip and go steal some stuff. All right, so the warriors are singing of their pleasure until the monster stirred, that demon, that fiend, Grendel, who haunted the moors, the wild marshes, and made his home in a hell, not hell, but earth. Dun, dun, dun. Grendel is the name of the monster. Okay, so now we're back to pagan beliefs in monsters. Okay, and then we have hell, which is a Christian concept, but this hell is actually on earth, so it's a mixture of this pagan and Christian thought. Okay, he was made his home in a hell, not hell, but earth. He was spawned in that slime, conceived by a pair of those monsters born of Cain, murderous creatures banished by God, punished forever for the crime of Abel's death. The Almighty drove those demons out, and their exile was bitter. Shut away from men, they split into 1,000 forms of evil, spirits and fiends, goblins, monsters, giants, a brood forever opposing the Lord's will, and again defeated. Dun, dun, dun. So again, we have the Christian and the pagan mixed. We have an Almighty driving these people out. We're having the monsters getting in trouble for Cain and Abel's death. And then they're split into fiends and goblins and monsters and giants, which are old pagan beliefs. Okay, so here we are. We're back in the beer hall where the monster is upset about the songs. And then, when darkness had dropped, Grendel went up to Herit. That's the name of the beer hall. The beer hall actually gets a name. Well, it's not a beer hall, it's a mead hall. They drink this fermented liquid, fruit juice, whatever, that is kind of like beer because it's alcoholic. Grendel went up to Herit, wondering what the warriors would do in that hall when their drinking was done. And he found them, sprawled in sleep, suspecting nothing, their dreams undisturbed. The monster's thoughts were as quick as his greed or his claws. He slipped through the door, and there in the silence he snatched up 30 men, smashed them unknowing in their beds, and ran out with their bodies, the blood dripping behind him back to his lair, delighted with his night's slaughter. Oh, apparently the monster didn't like the music, so he went up and killed a bunch of people. Nice. That's what I do when people are playing too much loud music at the neighbor's house. At daybreak, with the sun's first light, they saw how well he had worked, and in that gray morning they broke their long feast with tears and laments for the dead. Hrothgar, their lord, sat joyless in Herit, a mighty prince mourning the fate of his lost friends and companions. Knowing by its tracks that some demon had torn his followers apart, he wept, fearing the beginning might not be the end. And that night, Grendel came again, so set on murder that no crime could ever be enough, no savage assault quench his lust for evil. And then each warrior tried to escape him, searched for rest in different beds as far from Herit as they could find, seeing how Grendel hunted when they slept. Distance was safety. The only survivors were those who fled him. Hate had triumphed. Okay, so Grendel came night after night killing people, and eventually the warriors all ran away. They went to different towns and different castles, and they got away as far from Herit, the beer hall, as they could. So the king is now left with no warriors. And so Grendel ruled, fought with the righteous, won against many, and won. So Herit stood empty and stayed deserted for years. 12 winters of grief for Hrothgar, the king of the Danes. sorrow heaped at his door by hell-forged hands. His misery leaped the seas. Wait a minute. So we've got a king. He's got no warriors. It's been 12 years. And he said, and his misery leaped the seas. So apparently, everybody from everywhere heard of his problems. His misery leaped the seas was told and sung in all men's ears, how Grendel's hatred began, how the monster relished his savage war on the Danes, keeping the bloody flute alive, seeking no peace, offering no truce, accepting no settlement, no price in gold or land, and paying the living for one crime only with another. No one waited for reparation from his plundering claws. That shadow of death hunted in the darkness, stalked Hrothgar's warriors old and young, lying in waiting, hidden in mist, invisibly following them from the edge of the marsh, always there, unseen. Dun, dun, dun. Notice how he is hunting? He's sneaky and dark and evil, all right? This is not a brave warrior. As more strong as he is, he does it sneaky at night. And so, mankind's enemy continued his crimes. See that? It's one of those kennings. Mankind's enemy is the same person as Grendel. So mankind's enemy continued his crimes, killing as often as he could, coming alone, bloodthirsty and horrible. And though he lived at Heorot when the night hit him, he never dared to touch King Hrothgar's glorious throne, protected by God, whose love Grendel could not know. So apparently, the king, Hrothgar, gets to stay in his house, and he never gets killed because apparently the king is protected by God. That was one of the beliefs they had, was that you were born into a certain, role, and God wanted you to be king or wanted you to be a serf. Okay, so protected by God, whose love Grendel could not know. But Hrothgar's heart was bent. The best and most noble of his council debated remedies, sat in secret sessions, talking of terror and wondering what the bravest of warriors could do. And sometimes they sacrificed to the old stone gods, made heathen vows, hoping for hell's support, the devil's guidance in driving their affliction off. That was their way, and the heathen's only hope. Hell always in their hearts, knowing neither God nor his passing as he works through our world, the Lord of heaven and earth. Notice the pagan and the Christian again. So the pagans wanted to go back for the devil's help against this person because they don't know this Christian concept, the Lord of heaven and earth concept. Their ears could not hear his praise, nor know his glory. Let them beware. Here comes a preaching. The person who's writing this story obviously threw in a little bit of preaching right here. Let them beware those who are thrust into danger, clutched at by trouble, yet can carry no solace in their hearts, cannot hope to be better. Hail to those who will rise to God, drop off their dead bodies, and seek our Father's peace. So there it is, the Christian guy writing it down, put a little preach in there. So the living sorrow of Healfdene's son. There's another kenning. Hrothgar is the king. They're not referring to him as Hrothgar. They're talking about him, about his father's name, son. Healfdene's son, simmered bitter and fresh, and no wisdom or strength could break it. That agony hung on king and people alike, harsh and unyielding, violent and cruel, and evil. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, but hope is coming because way off across the seas, they're hearing all these stories, and guess who's coming? Our hero. In his far-off home, Beowulf, Higlac's follower, and the strongest of the Geats, greater and stronger than anyone anywhere in this world, heard how Grendel filled knights with horror, and he quickly commanded a boat be fitted out, proclaiming that he'd go to that famous king. He would sail across the sea to Hrothgar now when help was needed. Notice Beowulf is like superhero. He's like a modern superhero, stronger than anyone. And when he hears that someone needs help, what does he do? He goes to help him. None of the wise one regretted his going, much as he was loved by the Geats. The omens were good, and they urged the adventure on. And so Beowulf chose the mightiest men he could find, the bravest and best of the Geats, 14 in all, and led them down to their boat. He knew the sea would point the prow straight to that distant Danish shore. Dun, dun, dun. They're going to put him in one of those big Viking boats, where you pull the oars, and he put 14 warriors in there, and they're going to go defeat Grendel, or not. Okay, that's the end of the story. Anybody have any questions? That's all of the story that we're reading today.